Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 18th of May. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Joshua Barrie for the first time this week. How are we doing, Joshua?
Is it the first time this week?
Is it the first time this week?
I don't know. It all merges into one, but
Yeah.
good to be here anyway. Good to be here, and looking forward to chatting what we're chatting about.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all things Rangers. Before we do that, folks, you know the drill by now. We've got that amazing offer on the website, just £12 for 12 months worth of content. So £1 a month for an entire year to get exclusive access of the website. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe. We've also got an offer on. It's just £4 for 4 months if you prefer to take that option. Not only that, if you sign up, you'll be entered into a draw for that lunch for 3 people at the Blue Sky Lounge restaurant on the 3rd of June, which is a Saturday, with a club legend as well. What a prize that is. So now is the time to sign up if you haven't already done so. Right, let's talk Rangers, Joshua. Lots of news coming out yesterday. Big interview by James Bisgrove yesterday evening. Around about 6 o'clock, came out with Rangers TV, where he discussed a number of wide-ranging issues. He provided a transfer update, which was interesting. Of course, Rangers have been heavily linked with a number of players in recent weeks, namely Jack Butland, Kieran Dowell, and Dujon Sterling. There was another player linked yesterday that has been linked a couple of weeks ago as well, which we'll touch on. Jose Cifuentes over in the MLS. But on transfers, Bisgrove says the manager has spoken about this summer being quite a transformative one for this squad. He's also presented a very clear plan, which is a body of work that's taking place across many months, led by John Park, your chief scout. From a recruitment point of view, he's presented a plan for what he wants the squad to look like next season. That plan is fully supported by the board, and we are reasonably well advanced in a number of discussions that will underpin that plan in terms of player recruitment. I think there will be some updates and announcements on that in due time. He added that the plan that Michael has presented to the board is a really, really exciting one in terms of the transformation of the team and what he wants to put on the park for next season. We need to recognise that player recruitment is never a linear process. There are various discussions and negotiations that are taking place, but we are ahead of the game and now engaging in some of those conversations. He then added, whilst the focus this summer will absolutely be on recruitment, bringing players in. We also have an eye on players trading out because that is important to the model. There are individuals, clubs that we are speaking to that may mean there are players that supporters see coming in but also going out. We'll also only take those decisions in the best interests of the club. Ultimately, this is all about Michael's plan for next season. As I said, he has the full support from the board in delivering that. The interview itself, I do urge you to go and check it out on Rangers TV, folks, with the incoming new chief executive at Rangers. On transfers, though, quite exciting. It says that the board are really behind Michael Beale and his plans for next season. Joshua, we know he's been very busy, the Rangers manager, in recent weeks, going and speaking to prospective signings and what have you. We all know that it's going to be a big upheaval and turnover in players, both in and out of Ibrox. What did you make of what James Bisgrove had to say?
I thought the interview overall he spoke well. I think people expect that from Bisgrove, and that's a positive because definitely over the last kind of year and a half, Derek, I think Rangers have lacked that, kind of lacked a figurehead aside from the manager to lay out what the vision is, whether that be from a football point of view or an overarching point of view. And Bisgrove is obviously kind of covering both aspects in his interview last night. So yeah, I agree with you. I thought he spoke well, and alongside Bennett, I think there's two people who will be comfortable being a figurehead, and that's important at a club like Rangers alongside the manager. In terms of the transfers, I think it's stuff that is already known. Michael Beale's obviously going to have to be backed because of the scope of change that's going to happen. You know, change has happened for a reason at Rangers. They're not in a position that they feel they should be, and justifiably so. You know, we're in mid-May, and the season's been over from a trophy point of view for over 2 weeks now, and that can't happen. And I think the change that has happened and is happening is a reflection of that. And Beale will have to be backed, not only because of the size of change, but the fact that it's a bit of a new core that's going to be coming into the club, Derek. I think that's probably the best way you can distinguish between a revamp and a rebuild or a refresh, or whatever you want to call it. Something, yeah. It is a different core group of players that have been here for the last 5 number of years, obviously best epitomised by Morelos and Kent at the top end of the pitch, who, ever since Steven Gerrard first came into the club, they've been the focal point up top. They've kind of been the team star men. So the what you're losing with them obviously have to replace with one way or another, and Beale's going to have to be smart alongside the club in the transfer market. Of course, you look at someone like Cantwell, who's worth more than what Rangers paid for him. Nico Raskin the same. They're going to have to look for more deals like that, I think, and be opportunistic as well as getting the right quality of players into the club. But of course, Beale will have taken this job knowing that he'll have to be backed in the window because of the scale of change that he's outlined, and the scale of change that has to happen to the squad to bring in, more players like Cantwell and Raskin to really drive the team forward.
Yeah, there was other things that came up in that interview, folks. Graham Morrison raised a point, says, brilliant James Bisgrove interview, right people at the top now excited regarding stadium upgrades. That leads us on. He was asked that he would brought up that the issue of safe standing. Of course, it's something that many supporters would like to see at Ibrox. He said, we also want to invest in our infrastructure. We've seen that here at Ibrox with some of the things we've done around stadium expansion. We're sitting here in the new Rangers restaurant, the Blue Sky Lounge. We're working on a sports bar that is incredibly exciting. As part of that stadium expansion that we've presented at the AGM, we've got a clear plan in terms of how we want to improve the disabled facilities here at Ibrox. As part of that, we're also looking into the feasibility of safe standing, which is an area which has been spoken about for many years, and it's an area I think we can revisit. Our financial health and sustainability gives us the resources to invest in the infrastructure. Of course, New Edmonston House, which reopened earlier this year, that really gave us the flagship of the campus we've got here at Ibrox. We've got the museum that will open, and again, it's another revenue stream that will open for us. That's one of the areas that will be really focused in terms of my leadership. And just on the disabled facilities, folks, the plans should be completed by 2025. Rangers insist it will be the best disabled facilities of any stadium in Scotland and become one of the most accessible sports arenas in Europe. As part of the plans, wheelchair spaces at the stadium will be increased to 270, and an extra 700 general access seats will also be added. When it's finished, Ibrox capacity will rise to an excess of 51,500. So, great news for those supporters with needing disability access and what have you, and good to see that the capacity will be increasing. And the safe standing issue is an interesting one, Joshua. I know there's a lot of supporters who would like to see that at Ibrox. Before now, it hasn't really had someone saying that it's something that they're certainly going to be looking at in terms of possibly introducing it at Ibrox, but I think James Bisgrove's words yesterday were positive on that front. Is that something you'd like to see at Ibrox?
Well, I thought the key thing in that statement, Derek, was Bisgrove effectively saying that, look, this has been an issue that an element of the fan base, whether that be a majority, minority, like any discussion around the stadium, want to discuss it so we can have a discussion about that and look into that. I think that's important because obviously it makes people feel listened to, and they'll want to, at their football club, have people at the top who not only are taking on their concerns, but listening to them about what they think the direction should be, whether that be anything down to the safe standing and how that could impact the atmosphere at certain grounds. So far with Bisgrove and Bennett being into the club, even the fact that he's holding this quarterly fan meeting as well, it's important because they're not only listening, but they're showing they're going to do that. And I just think that buys you time, Derek. I think that gives you a bit of scope for change and shows that you're going to run things differently, gets people on board. I think it's a smart move. Obviously, you've got to go and back that up in some way as well. And the disabled facilities are things that were outlined at the AGM as well. And the plans have been underway for that for a while. So I think it was a positive interview. Lots of good, exciting details in there for supporters to get excited about. The most prominent detail, of course, as always, will kind of come down to the pitch and what happens there, and the rebuild that Michael Beale is leading. It was interesting as well that there was the discussion of the sporting director as well, and kind of confirmation that Rangers are going to look to appoint a successor there, which I think is important because, I don't think it's any secret just the scope of work that Michael Beale has to undertake at the moment, alongside obviously coaching the team and getting them into shape long term, really driving the summer recruitment alongside John Park. I think it's imperative that Rangers do have someone in that sporting director role going forward. So I think good to hear that that's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of comments coming. I'll get to a few of them. Kev Armstrong, good morning, Kev. Where should safe standing go? The Broomloan front or the enclosure? I think the Broomloan front would think where the Union Bears are housed at the moment would probably be the most likely option. Joshua, could you see it maybe being anywhere else, perhaps, if Rangers were to adopt it, the safe standing at the ground?
Well, obviously, you have this. If you move, you have to move people, and there's a whole debate that neither you or I think are going to throw your hat into. But I mean, obviously, safe standing has really good arguments for it because of the way that it can impact atmosphere. I don't think many people would deny that. So, it'd be interesting to see what happens there and where those discussions go. Bisgrove also spoke about meeting up with different factions of the support, mentioned the Union Bears within that as well, and kind of having dialogue with a number of different aspects of the Rangers support. So, it's not easy at any football club to keep everyone together and to get everyone singing from the same hymn sheet. But I think if you have a character at the front of that visibly is trying to unite people and give a clear direction, Bisgrove is going to do that, and that probably can only be a positive going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Stevino Cadinho says the club deck. He's going for the standard section. I'm not too sure. That would be the safest place to stick it up there in the gods. That's for sure. I very much doubt that, but good suggestion nonetheless. Greg Simpson with some kind words. He says, "I love the Rangers review content. Great on my daily drive to hear all things Rangers." That's very kind of you to say so, Greg. Thank you very much for your support. Let's get on to transfer murmurings then, Joshua. Lots of comments coming in with regards to potential arrivals in the summertime. I'll direct you folks, if you haven't already seen the interview I did with Angela Smith from BBC Radio Stoke. She gave us a bit of an insight into Dujon Sterling and Jack Butland. It's on our YouTube channel, Facebook and Twitter, wherever you view our content. And also there's a transcription of that on the website if you prefer to read it also. Very interesting takes on both players. From what we hear, the Dujon Sterling transfer seems to be one that is edging ever closer and pretty much done. Jack Butland's an interesting one. With hearing murmurings that there's down south, Manchester United perhaps keen on keeping him around next season. Of course, he is on loan there at the moment from Crystal Palace. Apparently reports suggesting that Manchester United want to retain him as cover for David De Gea, who's having an absolutely horrendous season. A lot of Man United fans want him out the door, and Dean Henderson, of course, as well, who's highly rated. But that's an interesting one. We had a discussion with Stevie Clifford yesterday, Joshua, just on the issue of the goalkeeper position. I think Robbie McCrory has done really well since he's been drafted back into the side. We can't complain with 4 clean sheets out of 4. If Jack Butland does come into Ibrox, you're probably thinking he's not coming up here to play second fiddle. So it's an interesting one. What have you made of Robbie McCrory so far since he's come back into the team?
Well, I think just on Butland, Johnny mentioned it, I think on Monday or Tuesday, that it wasn't quite done. And obviously the money that he's going to be on, the situation he's in at the moment, kind of confirms that. He's also, Butland's not 36, 37. I think he's 30 or 31. So you're still looking at a good number of years for him in his career. I think Rangers will be looking to sign a keeper because they're going to lose one anyway, right? So they're going to need to make that complement up to 3. I guess it determines what Robbie McCrory needs to do to be number 1. I think he's done brilliant in the games he's played so far. His distribution, I don't think, has really been tested so far. There was some comments I've seen on Twitter kind of criticising a bit his distribution against Celtic, but I think if you watch that type of game, it's clear the instruction was to get the ball beyond Celtic's press. It's the type of game that it was. It was, especially in the first half, there wasn't really a patient element to the game at all, was it? Both teams were going at it.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see McCrory, when he is under a little bit more pressure with the ball, what he can offer there, if he can offer Rangers a little bit more of an option. Because I'm very much of the belief that if Rangers can get a goalkeeper who not only is able to do the business in big moments, which McCrory has in those last 2 games, but also make a contribution with the ball at his feet, then it will leave them in a much better position. I mean, the 2 things that stood out to me were, the main thing, Derek, was the speed off his line. We know how Beale wants to keep his team compact, and we know that he doesn't want the opposition to have lots of space to play in between the lines. But as well as that, I think the fact that McCrory was so quick off his line, and there's an example that's on my Twitter, meant that if the press was broken, and it was a couple of times, it was that type of game, like any Old Firm game that's emotional. So at times, I think that's going to happen. He was on hand to pick up the pieces. And how many games have Rangers, Old Firm games, have Rangers suffered from these moments, whether it be mistakes or a goalkeeper just not making the difference in Old Firm games this season? I think under Michael Beale alone, you can say that they've handed away 3-4 goals if you take the 2 mistakes at Parkhead. If you take the mistake in the first game, the January Old Firm, and then you take obviously the one at Hampden, which is the worst one. But beyond obvious mistakes, McCrory was so quick off his line, kind of covering that space behind Connor Goldson when Celtic got in down the left. So he's done as much as he can so far. Beale's confirmed that he's going to be a part of things next season. I guess the question is, do you bank on him being number 1, or do you probably, which I think is the most likely thing, bring in some competition there with McCrory very much firmly as your number 2, pushing to be your number 1? I think you need competition in all areas of the pitch. Equally, Robbie McCrory will look at the games that he's played so far and probably justifiably say, what more does he need to do to be given a kind of substantial chance beyond a few games at the end of the season?
Yeah, interesting indeed what happens with regards to that one. Another player, I know there's lots of comments coming in. Paul Murphy says that I've seen rumours interest in Lewis Palmer's exaggerated. Any truth to this, and how true are the Cifuentes rumours? Of course, this is Josie Cifuentes, who plays for LAFC over in the United States. Ecuador international, 24-year-old midfielder, reports in Ecuador claim that Rangers are closing in on a transfer for him. Toulouse from France also believed to be keen on the midfielder, but according to reports over there in his homeland, Rangers are his preferred destination. Now, I've got to say, Josh, I know we had a little sort of scouting piece up on this lad a few weeks ago, but I don't know too much about him. But from all accounts, he seems like the sort of caliber of player that would excite coming in. He certainly fits the profile. He's on the right side of 20, midfielder, which Rangers need. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, and I think if you look at a type of player that a manager wants, it's these type of players that Beale tends to go for. I think certain managers have a favourite type of player, and Beale's definitely is attacking midfielders or midfielders who can fulfil a number of different roles. It's an area of the pitch. Obviously, Malik Tillman kind of confirmed at the PFA Awards that decision is still to be made. His season ruled out early by injury, but I think over the course now, reflecting back on that, I think he had a very good season for being 20 years old, 17 goal contributions. We can get into that maybe a bit after, Derek, but it's certainly an area of the pitch that, regardless of that, I mean, I think you'd hope that Alex Lowry is going to play a bit more as well. Rangers will still probably look to bring someone in deeper in the pitch to play alongside Raskin, and remains to be seen what happens with Lundstrom. You know, Ryan Jack as well out of contract, but we know that Michael Beale wants to keep him around. So Rangers need to strengthen in all areas of the pitch. You maybe look at certain positions that have a little bit more depth than others, but there is going to be links with all positions on the pitch, because they need depth up top. They need more depth at centre back. You know, the Sterling links confirm the depth that's required at full back as well. And we've already discussed the goalkeeper. So there's going to be change all over, and that type of profile of player, I think, certainly marries up with what Beale, what you identify as a kind of Michael Beale type of player in that midfield.
Yeah, just on Lewis Palmer, Rangers have not said anything with regards to that. When I spoke to the Greek football expert on it, it was his understanding that Rangers and Anderlecht were in talks with regards to that. Nothing official as yet. He says that is a norm with regards to these sorts of things. And we've heard from the Aris. I'm not sure if it's a chairman or someone, a representative from the club, did name check Rangers as well. But yeah, we've not heard anything from Rangers' side on that one. But he's certainly a player that has been linked, of course, left-sided winger, Honduran international. He's another one that came from the United States, didn't play in the MLS. It was a league below that one, but he certainly had a fantastic season over there in Greece and attracting a bit of attention. So listen, there's going to be a host of players linked to the club between now and the start of next season. I want to get your take on this, Joshua, because there was a few concerns when Michael Beale gave a press conference recently. I'm not too sure when it was, but he did say that you'll be able to identify the links of the players that are coming in, because they have him and his coaching staff will have worked with them previously. And there was some bit of concern from some suggesting that Rangers weren't shopping in markets that they maybe should be shopping in. But certainly the players that are being linked, I mean, that's out with the English Championship and the English lower leagues. So it certainly shows that they are spreading their net far and wide.
Yeah, and I guess you take some things with a pinch of salt. Does Beale's comments extend to certain members of the recruitment team? You know, John Park's been mentioned a lot recently, and you just don't know. There is going to be really good players in all leagues, and it's about trying to obviously find the best value in the market. You know, you could say, for example, that the English Championship might be, your value for money might not be as good for English prospects as certain other leagues, but then you get a player like Todd Cantwell, the right time, the right deal, the right personality. So I think it's so specific, and this window is so specific because of the situation that Beale inherits, because of the change that has went on at the club and the influence that the manager has obviously over recruitment. I think justifiably so. So I'd take that probably with a pinch of salt, but also, you look at his staff where they've worked. You know, Harry Watling's obviously worked in America as well. You have Neil Banfield, we know all about his experience, Damien Matthew, and then the recruitment team as well. That comment could cover quite a lot of bases, couldn't it?
Yeah. I like this comment that came in. Of course, Liverpool announced players that will be leaving the club in the summer. Joshua, I'm not too sure if you've seen it. One of the names is Bobby Firmino. Would you like to see him at Ibrox?
Yeah, I don't think it's unlikely, but I'm sure he'd absolutely stroll it, wouldn't he?
Yeah, Blair Cockburn with a fantastic suggestion there. I remember when, of course, social media goes into a bit of rumour mill meltdown at the time. I think when Giovanni Van Bronckhorst was dismissed and Rangers were on the lookout for a new manager, someone had photoshopped Firmino's head onto Steven Gerrard coming out the tunnel. And a wild suggestion that he'd be coming to Ibrox as player manager didn't quite materialise. But listen, Bobby, if you're listening, I'm sure you watch the Rangers review religiously, then get yourself up the road and make amends for the goals you scored at Ibrox on that terrible night earlier on in the season. I
think what you would say there, though, is you look at this window, and the fact that Rangers got Raskin and Cantwell in so early is a huge help, not only because I think it shows the type of player that Beale's wanting to bring in, and not only their ability, but their personality, their stage of career. And it gives you stuff to build around, you know, alongside Tavernier and Goldson. As mentioned, it remains to be seen what happens with Tillman, but Rangers aren't going to sell 20 players and buy 20 players. There is going to be an element, obviously, who remain, but the core is going to be refreshed. And I think getting those two in alongside Tavernier and Goldson, probably the only two, you know, if Ryan Jack is to remain, I think he'll probably play start bit part, as has been the case this season, obviously with his age and his injury history. Then I think that's been really important, not only for the impact they've made in the second half of the season, but looking forward as well.
Yeah. Let's get to a few more comments before we wrap up. First of all, Ian Cochrane says, any idea what is happening with the app?
It's on its way, Ian. It's on its way. Sorry, but it will be there, but thank you.
Yeah, it's above our pay grade, Ian, but we're told that the tech boffins are working away on that. Hopefully we'll get it here soon because it'll make a hell of a difference. It'll be absolutely fantastic when it comes. But yeah, we'll be the first to let you know when that is nearing completion. Josh, I wanted to get your take on, me and Stevie talked about Michael Beale's comments on Tom Lawrence yesterday. Yeah. Of course, he's been out for some time. Alan Kincaid says Tom Lawrence is fully fit after pre-season. Will be a massive addition, but who makes way for him? Interesting comments from the manager on him. He says he's in a different sort of frame of mind now that he's entered his rehab. He's been out for so long, hasn't he? Yeah, but he says he should be back 2 weeks into pre-season, which for me is encouraging news. I think the initial prognosis was back end of pre-season. Well, start of the season he'll be playing catch-up, but it looks like he will be close to a return. I think he will be playing catch-up, of course, but not as much as he would have been earlier on. Tom Lawrence, the old cliche goes, will be like a new signing, Joshua, but he is real quality, isn't he? I'm really looking forward to seeing a midfield of him, Cantwell and Raskin in there. That is one that melts, certainly whets the appetite.
Yeah, and I've seen a comment there saying who drops out from or the start comment there by Alan. Over the course of the season, you think back to a couple of seasons ago where Scott Arfield and Rangers won the title. Scott Arfield came in and had a good purple patch, and then Yanis Hadji did, and then Joe Rebo did at the top of midfield. Over the course of the season, I think you need the issue that Rangers have had is they've not had the ability to even rotate players through their purple patch. So Lawrence, I don't think Lawrence is going to come in and start maybe 60 games for Rangers, but can you count on him to have a really good impact in a certain number of them? Yes, and similarly, that's maybe where players like Tillman at points this season have fallen down or been criticised at points because it's only been him that's been in that position throughout the good games, but also the bad games as well. Whereas if you have more depth to your squads, remember Michael Beale saying about a month into the job, no one knows what players I like because I've only had these players to pick from, and he was correct. For the first, I think after even into late January, he was still really fighting to get a lot of his players back fit. So Tom Lawrence, when he's back, I'm sure will be able to make a big contribution. But the thing that Rangers need is depth, and because they have such a big squad, I think it's easy to think that they have had that. But you think of the number of players, just Helander, Roof, and Lawrence alone, and the money that's been in the stands, that can't happen next season. Rangers, obviously, just from a resource point of view, need to use that. Need to have better value there. So I think he'll be able to make a big impact when he's back. I don't think that will mean that he has to start every single week, but having that depth in game, but throughout the season as well, will be a huge help for people.
Yeah, it'll be great to see him back in the side. Denzel with an interesting point. He says, you wonder if Lawrence is the type of player to step back and run the midfield, a bit like Davis did in the latter part of his career. And just talking about stepping back and running the midfield, I wanted to get your point on this finally. Point coming in here from Ross. Says, good to see Lundstrom upping his game in the last few weeks to more like last season in Europe, etc. Another good option in the middle. He has improved lately, Joshua. Not too sure if he's got the Kyle Lafferty syndrome where he starts playing at the tail end of seasons, but I have noticed he has been much better recently. Of course, he is one of a number of players entering the final year of his contract in the summer. I think Rangers have a decision to make on that one. I don't think they'll be short of offers should they look to find a buyer. But if he's playing like that, then certainly I'd be more inclined to keep him around if he's going to turn in performances like he has been doing, Joshua.
The role he played at the weekend, I think it suits him so much more than in a. I think if you're trying to sum up Lundstrom's game, I don't think he's a player who's brilliant at setting the tempo. In a game where it's slow or there's a lot of, I think it was telling that it was Nico Raskin at the base of midfield. He's the one who receives the ball under pressure, and not only the number of interceptions he makes, but the way he's able to make up ground before he latches onto a player. So impressive off the ball as well as on it. But Lundstrom in that outside midfield role, which is maybe more what he was signed for. I don't know when he was initially brought into the club, obviously under Gerrard and Beale back in the summer of 2021. The reason those European performances brought out the best in him is because Rangers, let's not forget why him and Sakala kind of arrived. One of the main reasons was, you look back to the season before in Europe, and I think Rangers didn't look like they had the physicality to compete at the next level. That Rangers squad, I think, without someone like Lundstrom in there, would have struggled to go on that run to Seville last season, because he just gave you that, not only the flexibility to go and play in the defence, but the kind of legs box to box, the athleticism that obviously forged him that season with Sheffield United in the Premier League. Whether the thing is, there's not many of those games domestically. Yes, in Europe that could be important, and when he's playing that outside midfield role and he's having to press up, I think that suits him. He's entering the final year of his contract, and these will all be considerations that Beale has to take. Lundstrom clearly is a player he likes because he's played them so often, and he has played them in that kind of back three role as well. But I just think the game suits him most when it's a bit faster. Hearts away comes to mind as well. It's a bit more end to end, and it's not as reliant on him opening up spaces, but running into them and going box to box. And I think that really suits him when he's asked to do that role.
Yeah, he's certainly been playing much better than he has been this season. We'll finish up. Kenny says, I can't believe this, Josh, and apologies for everyone for bringing it up if it's too soon and too raw. It's certainly too raw for me. I don't know why I popped this up. It's a year to the day that Joe Reba had us all believing. Haven't been able to watch it all back yet, but what could have been yet. I haven't watched it back either, Kenny. Ditto Manchester. But that moment, Joshua, it's a moment I think that'll... He did have us all believing, didn't he? Yeah. I don't think Rangers were, but to be honest, but didn't.
They weren't great in that game. It was a game that it just felt up until that point. Kind of every pass was anxious. Everything seemed to travel backwards, and then it was a slip that allowed the Rebo through. But yeah, I mean that moment was, and the whole journey was incredible. Rangers got to as far as they could get against a team so much better resourced as they had done throughout the competition, to penalty kicks, and ultimately it was just their quality that kind of came through in the end. But yeah, I mean, what a journey, absolutely incredible, and a game that was obviously not enjoyable to watch for a number of reasons, but it was not great on the eye at all. And that moment, will always stick with me as well.
Yeah, it really was a memorable run, and it was just meeting Rangers fans you've not seen for many years as well. There's a lot of fans converging on Seville from all over the globe, which was fantastic to see. Unfortunately, it never went our way that evening, but yeah, when Jody will put that ball away, it was delirium, that's for sure, amongst the Rangers support. Right, folks, let me direct you to what you can find on the website this morning. As I mentioned, just a quick word for the offer we've got on just now. Thanks to each and every one of you. Loads of you actually taking advantage of it. Just £12 for an entire year worth of exclusive access to the website. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe to sign up. You can also take advantage of the £4 for 4 months offer if you prefer. And you also get entered into the draw for 3 people for lunch at the Blue Sky Lounge restaurant at Ibrox on the Saturday, the 3rd of June, with a club legend as well. What a prize that is. You can find on the website, there's a brilliant piece from Martin Ramsey on there. Of course, it's also the anniversary on this day back in 1996 when Rangers demolished Hearts at Hampden. Gordon Durie netted a hat-trick, but he was eclipsed by the performance of Brian Laudrup, who was absolutely sensational that day, as was Paul Gascoigne, to be fair as well. What a glorious afternoon that was. So yeah, I'd urge you to go and check out his piece on the website. It's absolutely sensational. And as I mentioned there as well, there's the little transfer lowdown on Dujon Sterling and Jack Butland to get your teeth stuck into also. So plenty to keep you amused. We'll be back again tomorrow as myself, Joshua, hopefully, and Stevie Clifford will be back on as we look ahead to the game at Easter Road against Hibernian. But until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Bye for now.